Well, it's that time again to talk about transforming your relationships. Hi, Roberta.
Hi, Laura.
Well, we've got one of our other touchy subjects here. We're talking about emotional anxiety and how it affects other people or emotions in general. Have you ever felt like the way you're being is affecting other people? And why? And taken. Let's see. I have definitely done that. I know that my emotions come out sometimes and they inadvertently hurt others.
I
And
think every human does that. I mean, I'm thinking about this story that was told, probably an urban legend, about this fellow. He was meditating in the Himalayas for 20 years, and he came down into the city. He was walking down the street, and everybody's kind of looking at him and all. And then somebody didn't notice him and not kind of hit him as they walked by. And he went off like a Roman candle, just screaming, yelling. So, you can spend 20 years in meditation and still be irritated.
it happens to the best of us, is what I'm hearing.
So, yes, it's a moment to moment consciousness about what state you're in and how much of a filter you've installed, because that's something that you work on, installing your own filter.
Oh, people have filters?
Well, it's nice if they do. Yeah. Not all people have them. I've noticed that. And then some people have filters when they don't have anxiety, but as soon as they have anxiety, they go right back to the wall. Like someone said to me this morning about a hijack call, and they said, you know, well, is reasonable quite a bit of the time. I said, yes. And every time he has anxiety, he regresses to somewhere between 3 and 7 years of age. And she said, yeah, that's exactly what happens, because that's what happens where the anxiety sits, is in that regression. And so they're anxious and they have a tantrum. They just say whatever's on their mind. They slam doors. They're rude, anything, because that sense of self is touched, and everybody else has to be wrong.
It's it's such a knee-jerk reaction, it looks like, when you're witnessing it, and either when I'm witnessing it in myself or I'm witnessing it in others. I'm like, oh, they just went knee-jerk. And the filter they have is the world is against me, or the this happened to me, and see, it proves everything about me and how I feel. It's very validating in a way when something happens to somebody, even though it's very negative, but then they get to be right, and they get to express this energy out. But then who gets the brunt of that pain? That pain that was building up, like that monk story you just told about meditating, and then all of a sudden there must have been something that he didn't know was there that just came out because it was never looked at. It was never addressed. It was never given airtime.
Well, and also he wasn't really peaceful. He just didn't have any people around. So there was no one to irritate him. So he did, how dare you? I'm in my bubble and somebody touches me. How dare you? Well, you haven't had that experience in 20 years, so you haven't had to monitor that experience, you
And for
know.
those of us who are with people and we find ourselves in arguments, and we keep going and going and going, sometimes I'll catch myself and I'll be like, well, why am I just arguing this? Why am I pushing this point in this way? Why do I have to be right? When it's damaging a relationship, when that other person, it's hurting that other person, or it's stressful for that other person. Why do we have this need to like blurt, to get it out, to be right? What is this?
Well, I think each one of us, when we're a child, feels like we are at the mercy of the giants, right? That's the whole thing. I mean, we're born into this place where everybody's big and we need them to take care of us and want them to be nice to us. And if they were nice to us and all, we kind of had a conversation, a conservation level of I'm okay. If we were welcomed by joy, if people really paid attention to us, they met our needs, they let us know they were glad we were here, we build up an opportunity to say, people are good. This is safe. I'm all right. But if we have had troubling circumstances when we're young, or recently a troubled, terrible relationship, or toxic or abusive relationship, particularly an emotionally abusive relationship that took place over time, or had emotionally abusive parents, things are pretty close to the surface about whether or not we're safe. And so that protective element comes out. There are other things too. Sometimes people have underlying resentments, that they meet somebody that they admire greatly, and they they're kind of like, they admire this person, but they're kind of annoyed that they do. And so when that person is steady and they go off, that makes them worse because they feel more like a child, and then they scramble with that. And we have ways of interacting that need healing, and that's what we're talking about today. But there's a whole other element right now, Laura, that we all have to recognize, that everybody's at a certain level of anxiety.
Hmm.
Like, I went to the doctor's office the other day, and it's a clinic, big building, all of that. And oh my goodness, the shortness of the staff, the lack of courtesy, the lack of interest. And I think part of that is the depersonalization of the mask. Like, you can't see if a person's smiling, you can't see what's going on. And it seems that in that two-pronged thing, the mask plus the anxiety and fear of getting ill, of seeing so many people who are ill, of hearing of other people who are ill, then that whole level of anxiety is the starting point for a relationship. I'll give you an example. A woman walked in. I was going to a new doctor, hadn't met him before. My doctor quit. Woman walks in, and she's got a mask on, and she says, "Are you sure that your insurance covers this?" I'm like, hello? I mean, I was sitting facing this way, door behind me, and just said that. And I'm like, whoa, okay, you just got here. And that was all she wanted to know. She didn't say my name. She didn't say hello. She didn't say anything. And I thought, there's an anxiety response. Like, she's already anxious about her job, she's anxious about doing the right thing, she's anxious about leaving her children at home, or whatever she's anxious about in her personal life. And how is it displayed? Are you sure your insurance covers this? Like, so we have to notice that this level of anxiety is very present right now. I mean, why are we seeing all of these Facebook memes where people are going off when they're told to wear a mask or whatever they're doing? Well, it's well exacerbated because they're afraid. They're already afraid of COVID, and now they're afraid that somebody's going to tell them what they have to do. I mean, this is an absurd situation. Is everybody going to start going off on Facebook because we wear seatbelts? I
Hmm.
mean,
Right.
it's absurd. I
It's
mean, we're
really
doing
funny. I was thinking about the seatbelt thing.
yeah, so it's crazy. Like, all we're saying is everybody's safer generally. We have fewer people who are ill if everybody wears a mask. Put on your seatbelt, put on your mask. Pretty easy. Seatbelts are not an infringement of your personal rights. I mean, I suppose if you want to go through your windshield, it's your choice. But don't come through your windshield and into mine, because I'm not happy about that, right? So we're just getting our knickers in a twist about things that are so matter of fact. It,
Yeah. It takes it, it's like we're coming through a filter of anxiety that, oh my gosh, it must all be against me. Our greatest fears, it's like, feels like when you're in anxiety, everything looks like it's against you, right? And you take it very personally, and you start thinking like really out of but like you says, we've said on other shows, you go into your fight or flight mode. It's the limbic brain. It's not the critical thinking brain. So the minute you feel threatened, you are not critically thinking. If you can take a bigger picture, then you may see things a little bit differently. Now, if you're enraged, feel that rage. Feel where it's coming from. Is it really the truth of this particular situation? Or is this compiling just another thing, the straw that broke the camel's back type of thing? And then when we're at the brunt of it, like you're in the office and somebody is saying, are you sure this is blah, 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 blah? I mean, how do you diffuse? Like we talked about de-escalating situations, and how can my question to myself would be, how can I be a little more generous, emotionally generous? Because that's what's needed here. Like you said, healing. How do we help be a presence of healing in our lives, even when we're going through the anxiety? Like you said, we're all in it. So we can all say, hey, it's not my responsibility because I'm too upset. Or we can say, what can I do about it? Is there something I can do? Can I smile? When you do smile in a mask, you can tell. It's a lot more subtle, but you can tell. And I thought about why aren't we generating masks with smiles on them? Like there are probably a few I saw.
There are,
There
yeah.
are there are a few, but they're not the ones I'm seeing out. Like most people I know are not wearing that. Why? Let's go start a movement of wearing smiling masks. So that would,
Or do the black Sharpie thing and draw one on your mask.
yeah, if you have that kind of a mask. I mean, I've seen a lot of black masks, so I like, have to.
Well, red lips then, a red Sharpie.
Yeah, something that shows you're smiling, and that you want to be a friendly presence here. You want to be a healing presence, and I think that's really what transforming your relationships is about. Is like bringing yourself more peace and joy, and then you'll have more to give to the world, which makes the world a more peaceful, joyous place. And then also we deal with, well, how about those people who will never get there? And they become chronically difficult. They become those hijackal type people. So,
Well, they may not, because that means they've got personality disorder functions, but
oh,
they will
okay.
become the people that we just don't want to be around. They're grumpy, they're irritable, they're on edge, they snap. That doesn't mean that they're hijackals, but they're just letting their anxiety rule the roost, and their judgments come out of their mouths with no filter, and they're not really pleasant to be around. I was in the store the other day, and a woman. It was the day that our governor here in California said everybody had to wear a mask in public. So she had her mask around her neck, and she was in Sprouts. And I said, "Oh, now we always have to wear our masks." She took off on me like there was no tomorrow. And she informed me that she was an HR consultant. She knew everything there was to know about masks and rules and everything. And she was of that ilk of people who just keep talking. They never take a break. And if you start to talk, they talk over you. And I just sat there, leaning on my buggy, my shopping cart, going, really? All I said was, yeah, it's a bummer. Now we all have to wear our masks everywhere in public, just to give her a clue, like, put your mask on, please. But I got an earful. And I looked at her and I thought, I can see it in you. She had really tight clothes on, purposefully attempting to be sexy. She had 4-inch heels on, attempting to be sexy. She was, it's not cute to wear a mask when you're in the grocery store, I guess. And here you are attempting to be sexy and thinking you know everything. Well, that's a nice combination to put with anxiety. And
On
she
top of
just,
all
I
that,
mean, she just went on and on and on and on. And finally, I just walked away. Like, this is never going to end. I got to get my groceries and get out of here.
right. And stop talking to somebody without a mask who's breathing all over the
Yeah,
place.
like I don't want to be any closer.
But this talk is not just about people with masks. This happens all the time. This has happened before. This whole anxiety time. People have anxiety. People have emotional pain that comes out sideways. If you ever caught yourself in an argument like I have, and I'm like, why am I going on? I start to question myself. Why is this? Why do I have so much energy about this particular instance? Because it's not about this particular instance. It's about a history. It's about, something else. And if I can start to acknowledge that and verbalize that, even just to myself, I don't have to have that argument with someone else. I don't have to cause that emotional pain, because what I was talking about was not what I was really
Yeah,
feeling. It wasn't
yeah,
related to what I was really needed to talk about, to heal that, to get past that, um, to be able to be more compassionate out there, because I know I've had emotional pain that has come out sideways. And when I catch myself, I like to be responsible for that. It's like, oh, shoot. I just,
yeah.
did all this really, I was really short, because it is. And we need to find healthy ways to get it out. Any
Yeah.
suggestions?
Well, yeah, I do. But a long time ago, I don't know, 30 years ago, before we were so careful about any kind of sexist role, but it kind of illustrates this. It may have been longer than 30 years ago, but they were talking about, it was an example of anger, and it was a drawing in a book. And it was the man coming home from work where he'd had a terrible day, and he's complaining to his wife, and that's all happening. And she gets short with the children, and the children get short, and they kick the dog. Right. Well, that's
Chain
the kind
reaction.
of, yeah, chain reaction. That's what happens. So if you've just come from a place where you had upset, one of the important things that I tell my clients all the time is understand what I call transition time. Give yourself enough time to transition from one conversation to another, one person to another, one location to another. I use it particularly for when you come home from work. Take 15, 20 minutes, sit in a park, think about it. Okay, I had a bad day. What am I going to leave here at work? What am I going to take home with me? Let me visualize home. This is the people I love. It would be really great if I came into them with love, as opposed with bringing my whole day with me. And we can all do that. We can have transition time in our head while we're walking around in Sprouts. Like, that didn't go very well. I don't think I'll mention a mask to anybody else today. Right? Think about it. Take some transition time. If you have a big upset in your life, take some transition time. Relax, take some deep breaths, lie down on the floor, give yourself over to the floor if it's in your body like that. And then say, all right, now what am I going toward, and what am I taking with me? It doesn't have to be a long adventure. It needs to be a conscious and purposeful one.
I've taken that transition time sometimes, and it still doesn't help. Meaning, I haven't resolved something. I haven't done what I needed to do with that energy to transform it into something positive. One maybe a reconciliation in my mind of like what's going on and what do I need and how can I heal it. I think sometimes there are there's big issues that no matter how much 15-minute transition times you take, it doesn't go away. It's still crying for healing, and then it still comes out. What do you recommend in those instances?
A mask.
This is a comedy relationship hour, everybody. It's great. I love it. Yeah, protect other people. That's what it's about. Oh my God, that was so good.
Well, I think that consciousness is everything. I mean, if you know you're in a miserable mood, lead with that. If you're meeting somebody, say, you know, it has nothing to do with you, and I'd love to be better, but right now I am just in such a nasty mood, and I'll give it my best shot. And, if you even claim and name something, sometimes you can laugh and someone will say, oh, yeah, I went through that yesterday and here's what helped me. Um, but at least you've put someone on notice that you're not your best self right now, and that's something to go on. And, maybe some days you go to work and you're in that already bad mood from home. And, you've got to do something like, Yeah, I've got home fleas on me or something to make light of it. Because, we talk about that all the time, hijackal fleas. Um, if you live with a hijackal or you were raised by a hijackal, you're likely to have hijackal fleas, um, which means that you will behave like them sometimes because you've just been in the relationship so long. It's
Mhm.
not that you are that; it's just that you've modeled that relationship where you're trying to pay back that kind of behavior. So it's always good for us to be able to say, you know, here's what's going on with me. And if I'm short with you, I apologize in advance and I'll apologize afterwards, but this is not great right now. And we're human. Things are going sideways. I mean, anxiety could be one thing, but if somebody's saying grief, you don't expect them to be wonderful when you meet them. You expect them to be sad, you expect them to have some pain. So when somebody's in anxiety, wouldn't have to notice that too, because there's just so much of it around. It's palpable right now, and because people are operating at what I call above a 4, which means that if I think about it on a scale of 1 to 10, a resting heart rate is kind of at 0 to 1, and everything's calm and everything's good. But the majority of humans now, because we live in such a noisy environment and everything, we're already elevated to a 1 to a 2 before we even leave our home. We've had so much noise and activity and things happening. And so we get with other humans and we already have anxiety. So if we get beyond a 4, our body is going, "Oh, I need to take notice. What's going on? Am I safe?" And at that point, somebody can look at you sideways, and you could go in the wrong direction. And if you allow it to accelerate above that, there's actually physiological things that are going on to keep you safe, and you need to catch it before you get above a 4. So that may express as anger because maybe anger arousal, which is no different than being anxious. I mean, to the body's going through the same thing. It's saying, am I going to have enough breath? Am I going to get enough oxygen? Am I safe here? Do I need my muscles on the ready? It's preparing for fight or flight or faint or freeze or whatever response we're going to have to something that's stressing us. So we need to understand our physiology and say, hey, I better have some ability to control my physiology because I can't go around just running off that because I have a brain. I am not an animal that just is on high alert all the time, like a dog who's been tethered to a leash or something for a long time without food. So we have a lot of choice, but the only choices we have are the ones that we make. And if we don't notice that we're living at high anxiety and we're taking care of ourselves, then that anxiety is going to spill over in the world.
Yeah.
And that's when things go sideways. Sometimes you don't even know how stressed you are until somebody says something and then you bark at them and you're like, oh, didn't even know.
Yeah, and sometimes, um, when you know you're in this state, you can't hardly even talk because you're in this state. But then somebody does something that's actually very generous, that's very compassionate. It kind of melts. I've experienced that experience of either somebody melting me in a sense, like melting that whole anxiety because they just made it okay. They just made it a little safer in the world.
Mhm.
Right? And, it's such a gift. It moves me that somebody could have that emotional strength to put up with and then be gracious with me. I remember a lot of instances as a kid because I think I had a lot of internal emotions that, I didn't know what to do with. And then when people were emotionally generous with me, I noticed. I noticed that. And I prayed that it could have a impact on me. And at some point, I was able to acknowledge my emotions, like you said, and work through them and receive that grace, that generosity. And I was just always so grateful, like somebody didn't kill me for being, someone who would go off on somebody or whatever it was. So, um, I think it is a heightened awareness time of anxiety, and the more we can be aware of it, and then, like you said, like give it to the ground, be with it for a moment, give it some air. I love the question to ask, what do I need that I can provide for myself right now? And maybe it's two questions. What do I need? I need blah 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 blah. But how can I provide any of that to myself? How can I
Mhm.
be responsible? Because then when you're actually taking care of yourself, you have a sense of internal power and control, and that anxiety can go down. If you're expecting it to come from the outside world, you'll stay in this pattern, right? Of nobody cares, no, everybody's against me, you see, and you keep building evidence up against that. So I think it's very
Yeah.
powerful to acknowledge our emotions and to take care of ourselves first.
Well, it is, and whether you have anxiety or not, let's do that.
Yes, how about that? Why not? Yeah,
You
because
know
it's really exciting to do, to be able to know that when you're in a state, you have the power to transform that. And I love the words transform your relationships of our show, your website, Transforming Relationships, um, is what we want to give people insight to. And I think having the conversation for myself also, it's like, oh yeah, a reminder, let's be a little bit more conscious, aware. How can I take care of myself emotionally without having to hurt anybody else, right? It's really about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, and who do I want to be in the moment is a good question to
Mm.
ask, you know? Am I demonstrating my values by what I'm about to do or say? Now, of course, that takes a degree of consciousness you may not have when your shoulders are up around your earlobes, but it's getting in the habit of asking yourself that all the time, no matter where we've come from, no matter what past we've had. In the moment, we can decide to do things our way. And if our way is, I'm going to be calm right now, that's all I'm going to focus on is I'm just going to stay calm and interested in this conversation. Maybe that's all you can do. Maybe you're not even completely present in your body the way you'd like to be, but if you can stay calm and interested, then at least you won't have anything to regret. I love I taught a lot of anger management classes, so I really love this quote. It's by Ashley Brilliant, and he said, "When you're angry, you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret."
Yeah. So
So
keep calm and carry on.
so it's important to realize that we can do something about not making speeches we'll regret. We have that power.
Yeah. And that's a really great early step in preventing out an old habit of just blurting out or getting your anxiety out or not being conscious, is to just not say anything. See if you can
Yeah.
calm yourself internally.
And then find someone to talk to who can walk you through that, and that may be a friend, it may be your partner. Just say, "I just need to talk. I just need to talk myself through this, but I can't do it alone because I need your nodding presence. These things happen, and then this happened, and I felt this way, and then I said this, and I feel so awful, and I wish I hadn't, and I don't know what to do." And, pretty soon you find yourself kinda calm and able to talk about it, and then you can make a plan.
Hmm.
But if you just keep it stored inside, it won't go anywhere good. It'll just keep festering. So you have to do something, whether that's an internal something that you do very purposefully, or you get it out by talking to someone. I was working with a couple the other day who are really in a troubled relationship. And I said, "You both have to tell me what kind of large muscle, full body activities you enjoy." And they said, "Why?" I said, "Because you both need to go and do them. You need to chop wood or run like crazy or sprint across the yard or take a big pool noodle and beat the bed or." You've gotta get all this anxiety out of your body because it's huge. I mean, it isn't little, it isn't an emotional discussion at this point, it is full body tension.
Yeah,
And we
get
need
it out
to,
and keep getting it out.
yeah, so we need to recognize those things.
Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation as always to start people thinking about how to keep each other safe, really keep each other safe emotionally. Be a little more emotionally generous with yourself too, and others. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Roberta.
Yeah, good to talk, Laura. Stay
Okay.
safe, everybody, and reduce your anxiety.
Bye for now.